Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I'm your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Torah Talk Weekly Parsha with one of our new rabbis, Rabbi Moshe Kormornick. Welcome back, sir. How are you this wonderful day? Good to have you back as well. All right. I think I've got you unmuted. There we go.
Perfect. It's not coming up on the YouTube. Is that okay?
It should. If you're trying to watch it, you may have to refresh your screen. It does look like we are live on my side. Very good. So, very good. TG, hey there. Good to see you in YouTube world out there. Thank you for tuning in. So, Parshat Shoftim. So, I missed last week. So I had a different upload. We'll double back and actually make sure we populate that on the YouTube channel at a later time. So, this week we're going to do Shoftim. And so, welcome, Walter. Good to see you, Big J. All right. So, once again, welcome back, Rabbi. How have you been?
Thank God, I've been very good.
Welcome, Walter.
Very good.
Just pause you on the other screen.
That'll work.
I'll be in a better situation. Thank God. It's like awkward moment. Thank God, I've been very good. Delighted to be asked back. I clearly behaved myself relatively well last time.
Yes, sir.
Either that or you scraped the rabbinic barrel and found me lurking somewhere at the bottom looking for attention. Either way, I'm grateful to be in this forum with you and everybody who's watching. Thank you for inviting me. I must say, I don't know if we can chit-chat before. I don't know the rules over here exactly. But whilst I'm still new, I can get away with a few different things. I must say that I'm not on social media. It's not because I don't have many friends. It happens to be that I don't have many friends, but that's not why I'm not on social media. And when I clicked on my YouTube thing, I don't know what it's called, the YouTube thing from last time, and I was seeing how many views, I'm going to say I got, but really you got on your program. It was amazing. I couldn't get over it. And then I saw likes, like hearts coming up. And I thought I was quite a self-assured person, but I must tell you that the more likes that came up, the better I felt about myself.
That's great. It's
quite. I mean, it's quite dangerous actually. The social media. I mean, I was glad I was exposed a little bit to it.
That's good.
But I don't know.
As far as I know, everybody really enjoyed your shiur, and the delivery was great. And I am currently in the process of enjoying the books. I say my wife is. We buy books, she reads them, and then she passes them on to me. But their short volume 1 and 2 are the ones that I want, and she's reluctant to share them with me at the moment. But very, very well done, apparently. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Very good. Well, awesome. Well, very good. It's good to see people coming in. John DeMaria, Walter Fogler. Good to see you all. Agent, welcome. Okay, well, Rabbi, I'll go ahead and pass this along to you and let you show us what this all Judges is all about.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Again, just want to thank you and everybody. Like last time, my goal in this forum, and I guess really in life, is to take the Parsha and bring it to life. Not necessarily to understand the nuances of every word for the sake of why it was written, but really what I can take out of it, how to live my own life in a certain way, in a better way, essentially, to get closer to God, to understand my role in this existence. And what I'm doing now is just sharing a few thoughts that I had along the way as I was reading through the Parsha, and perhaps together we'll pick some things up that can help us all lead a more fulfilled life, a better life, a more enjoyable life. And really that's my goal in life, and that's my goal to share with you today. Last time, I merited Parshas Balak. That's what we spoke about, Parshas Balak. So that had not angel-wielding swords, but sword-wielding angels. And it had curses and talking donkeys. So there was quite a bit of juice in Parshas Balak. But that's not to say that Judges is so dry, a little bit more dry. There's still plenty of meat and potatoes over here. And I hope to dive into a few of these verses and pick out some nuggets. And hopefully we'll glean a few things and maybe hear a few stories. And it's 1 o'clock in the morning for me, and then I'll go to bed. Sounds good?
Sorry, I muted my microphone. That sounds wonderful.
So I'm keeping you on your toes. In fact, I'll tell you what, last time, because right now I'm looking at, I don't know if I should ruin the surprise to everyone who
Okay.
thinks we're in a studio over here, but I'm looking at myself and I don't know what anything else is apart from the screen. And I saw afterwards that you do these fancy things like bringing up the verses on the screen. That was really impressive.
Awesome.
So I'm going to keep you on your toes a little bit. So
Okay.
I'm going to tell you where we're going, and we're going to jump around if that's okay, with your permission.
Yeah, that's fine. Now those
perfect.
verses won't show up during this one, but will show up in the replay, which you'll replay tomorrow. Because I'll put it after we do the show. I basically mark it for members only, and then I take it in and I edit it and add all those juicy visuals to it, and then we replay it. So on the replay, you'll see all the fancy touch-ups.
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought you were doing it live. I'm still impressed with you in every single way.
Well, we are recording live now, and you have a live audience, but I basically make the show go live twice. Once for the initial, and then I pull it down, edit it, and I replay it again the next day as if it's live so people can, at a different time frame. It's like right now we're playing at 5. Well, tomorrow night I'll replay this at 7 p.m. So we'll catch the 7 o'clock crowd, which will give other people a chance to watch it as if it was live and communicate in chat as well. But they'll get the juicier version of it because it's when it's all edited. So
Fascinating. Okay, this is good for me to know. Okay, but we are live. Makes me a bit nervous actually. But okay, so let's start. I guess let's dive right in. So, bunch of verses, really amazing messages, I feel. So let's start with, I guess, one of the first ones. Actually, the first one. It's Devarim. Devarim is, what's the English for Devarim? Deuteronomy 16:18. And the verse says, in English, you shall set up judges and enforcement officers for yourself in all your gates. So I just want to take a step back and speak about Torah for a second. The Torah is written by God, and it is it's not a history book, it's not a story book, it's a book of messages, it's a book of teaching. The word Torah itself means to teach something, and therefore everything in Torah is a lesson for us to learn. Now obviously the wider picture are big lessons that had to be wonderful people and not to be terrible people, but essentially there's nuance in every single letter. And the truth is, if somebody really knew how to read the Torah properly, like they did in the times of the Talmud, etc., they could glean things from even the crowns that were written on the Hebrew letters of the Torah. We can't necessarily do that, but what we've taken from our sages coming down the generations is something that we can at least learn from extraneous words, or, I know I call them really maybe inappropriate to say, but like weird ways of saying things. Essentially what we're doing is we're looking for things in the Torah that didn't need to be said or could have been said in a different way. Not that we're, God forbid, questioning God or saying we know better, but when we do see something a little bit strange, let's say, we prick our ears and we think, are we being taught something here? So I'm going to introduce, with the help of Hashem, a few different verses here that really do just that, and this is one of them. So these aren't, anything I say that's good is certainly not mine. Anything I say which is a mistake, it's absolutely mine. But I'm not going to necessarily quote names, but if anyone wants to get in touch with me and they want the sources, it's all sourced. So this verse that we just said, you shall set up your judges and enforcement officers for yourself in all your gates. So we just spoke about extraneous words. The first thing I speak about is this. You shall set up judges and enforcement officers for yourself in all your gates. I don't know, why do I need to say for yourself? If it says you shall set up judges and enforcement officers, and the Torah, as in God, is speaking to the Jewish people, let's say because it's true, then why for yourself? Just say, you shall set up judges and enforcement officers in all your gates. Why for yourself? What is for yourself coming to teach us? Let's actually ask a second question on this verse. So you shall set up judges and enforcement officers for yourself in all your gates. Why do you even need the word all? Just right, in your gates. You shall set up the judges and enforcement officers in your gates. If it says in your gates, so if I've got a gate, I know it needs a judge and enforcement officer. So why do I need the word all? Actually, for those who learn Talmud, this is essentially what we spend our day doing. Why all? What does it mean? Why is it written here? This is maybe we're going to pick out a couple of things from the rabbis over here. So the first thing to say, let's speak about why did it say yourself. Now, obviously, what I'm saying here is not necessarily the only reason why it says yourself, but it's in this forum I'm bringing out a moral lesson that I want to learn for myself, and with Hashem's help to teach to those who want to listen. So you shall set up judges and enforcement officers for yourself. So the Shlach HaKadosh, I'm not going to say every name, but I like to say some. He says, for yourself comes as follows. If it had just said, set up judges and enforcement officers, so I know that's the way that one should lead society. You need a judge and enforcement officers, and this is Parshat Shoftim, which teaches you the laws. But for yourself tells me something more. Each person, each individual should set upon himself a judge and enforcement officer. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody should, get a friend and give him a whip and say, if I do something wrong, smack me, and give the other guy a gravel, hammer, something, and, judge my whatever. But he says it means as follows, and I think it's such a beautiful message. We should each put upon ourselves a judge. What is a judge? A judge is a decision maker. We should not allow ourselves to allow things to happen to us or do things without making decisions. So many things in life, absolutely speaking from personal experience, we just do because we've always done them, or we do them by rote, or we do them without thinking. How many times are we driving and, you're listening to something, or you're speaking on the phone, hands-free or whatever, and by the time you get to your destination, you're like, how did I get here? I don't even remember the journey. It felt like it was 2 minutes, and really it was much longer. So we do so many things without applying our conscience. So the first thing to say is apply our conscience to our decisions. Don't allow anything that we do or that happens to us go without deciding, is this appropriate for us? Can I do better? Can I live a better life? Is this the thing I should be spending my time on? And that says the Shlach HaKodesh, one of the rabbis, that is the judgment that we should set upon ourselves. That's why it says yourself. Now remember, the verse doesn't just say judge, it says enforcement officers. What is an enforcement officer? So obviously in the greater society, it's the police, let's say, or whoever it is. The judges make the laws and the police apply them, or they're supposed to apply them, or we hope they apply them. But for ourselves, for yourself, the enforcement officer is I guess we'd call it incentives. Perhaps that's not really a good word, but essentially it means as follows. Let's say we've decided to do something, but we need to understand ourselves enough to say, well, I'm going to fall. If I put myself in that situation, I've decided I don't want to speak to this person because it's really bad for me. I'm going to speak badly about everybody else. I'm going to be not nice, and it's not good for me. It's not the kind of person I want to be. This group of friends is not for me. So I've made that decision. How to apply that decision? So we need an enforcement officer. And that could be within our own understanding of ourselves, what we need for that enforcement officer. Is it a friend? Could very well be a friend. Could be a literal enforcement officer says, don't let me go there, don't let me do this. Or it could be some incentive that, okay, if I don't do this, I'm going to reward myself in this way. Or it could be an enforcement officer is, I'm going to put myself in a different position. I'm tempted to go with these friends, but I know they're not good for me. So I'm going to enforce myself to go with a different group of friends or be busy that night so that I'm not in the position where I would be tested, because I don't want to be tested because I've already decided with the judge that this is not appropriate for me. So says this Rabbi, the Shlach HaKodesh, that not only do we have to make a greater societal protection of our laws, and we need to make a decision how to act as a society, but within ourselves we need to act in a certain way that means that we are acting appropriately in every single decision. And once we've made that decision, we need to have the means to enforce that. Now again, we could apply it to so many examples. We could apply it to a diet. Let's say somebody says, okay, he's noticed, he, she, me, noticed that you're eating too much of chocolate cake. So made the decision, I'm not letting this go without, it's not healthy. The way I'm living is not healthy. Okay, so what do? I put the judge on myself. Now, how do I enforce it? Because if I see a chocolate cake, I'm going to grab it. How do I do that? So I need to make myself whatever. Everyone's got to essentially, to a large degree of life and betterment, one needs to really start understanding themselves. There's something called hitbodedut, which is spending time with oneself. It's essentially spending time with Hashem, but to a large degree, it's getting to know ourselves. So much with social media, there I go again, social media, technology, and just this generation is so much, I don't know, there's just so much going on. For myself, and as I say, I'm not on social media, and I leave my phone at home most of the time, and I know my head's being, everything's coming in from all different directions, and I don't know, so it's difficult. So this is a time to separate. I mean, we thank God have got Shabbat, which we can essentially cut off from many different things, but everybody's got to take time by themselves. Get to know yourself, get to know your weakness and your challenges. So then enforcement officers to apply the ability to enforce oneself to follow the decision that you want to make is very, very important. In the chocolate cake example, maybe you'll reward yourself with a good ice cream, just kidding, with whatever it is. I don't know, a lettuce shake. I don't know, you can see I don't do this kind of thing, but maybe I should. But whatever one needs to do to apply the decision that they made for themselves, that's what we're supposed to do, and that's perhaps what we're learning from this verse. Essentially, in one line, it's as follows: know yourself, decide what is good for you, what is not good for you, apply yourself to what is good for you, stay away from what is bad for you, and enforce it in the best way you can. Obviously, challenges challenges are challenging, and therefore we fall. Get back up. Life is good. Life is, thank God, please God, we'll all live long lives, and that involves challenges and falling, and that's part of life. But essentially, if we make the decision to apply, to live a sensible life and live appropriately, and then try and apply that, then we're going to be great. That is the first message of this verse. Now, the second message I mentioned is in all your gates. Zip back to the verse. You shall set up judges and enforcement officers for yourself, which we've explained. In all your gates. What's all your gates? Again, just say in your gates. What does all your gates mean? So this, I think, is I've got it written down, but somewhere, I think it's a Sifsei Kohen. He says as follows: if you think about it, the word all must include something else. Because if you just said in the gates, so I know all my gates. So what does it mean all your gates? So all must mean something that you hadn't already included. So he says as follows: all your gates, and remember, we also have, you should have judges and enforcement officers for yourself. So for yourself and all your gates, it's talking about your gates, these things, the things that come into you, mouth, nose, eyes, ears, etc. And he said those are the things specifically that you need to guard yourself. For instance, whether it's speaking badly, we need to protect the things from coming out, or hearing bad messages or seeing bad sights. There are different things that come in and go out that we need to apply. These things that we just spoke about, the judges and the enforcement officers, we need to say, should I be hearing these things? Should I be seeing these things? Should I be speaking in this way? And if we've decided that these are most precious, our soul, really probably our soul is there when we put the tefillin, but for the cartoons or whatever, the soul is inside us. Certainly it's inside of us wherever it is. And our body is here to protect it. We've got to protect our body because essentially the body is the gateway to the soul. And so the orifices that we have, they essentially are a way to get inside to our soul. So we need to be extra careful to protect these things. If you want some extra homework, I'm sure everyone wants some extra homework, he goes through each orifice and what it means and why, and what needs to be protected and how. For instance, the nose, the nostrils is anger, because when you get angry, you blow out your nose. I've seen it done in cartoons. I don't watch cartoons. I'm not on social media. But blow out your nose. Ears and eyes, there's different things that are obvious, but essentially everybody should understand from themselves what they should allow themselves to experience as much as possible. Again, we're all facing challenges. There are situations where we can't get out of. But even within those situations, we can decide, am I doing the best I can? So that perhaps is one lesson from one small verse, but there are two extra words, and from those extra words you can learn a world. Change your life in 2 extra words. So that was the first thing I wanted to say. I might jump over there to the following. You know what, let's stick with the Oil Gates, and I just want to tell a story. It's actually it's a remarkable story. I heard this from somebody who heard this from. Someone heard this all the way back to when it was told, which was not that long ago. But it's as follows. It's the ability to have self-control. We spoke about the judges and we spoke about the enforcement officers. It's a challenge we all face, I imagine. I face it. And therefore you must. No. But I certainly face it, and therefore there's probably a lot of people who face it. You know. And it's as follows. We've just spoken about, it's very high level. Judge the situation and apply yourself. There's a lot of pressure. Everyone's got to know what they can do, what they can't do. There was a certain rabbi, could be I mentioned him last time, probably did, because he's one of the greatest rabbis of the generation. He passed away not so long ago. His name was Rabbi Yosef Shalom Ali Yashav. Now he was the undisputable greatest rabbi ever, before the previous greatest rabbi ever. But he's certainly in our generation, my generation, he was the greatest rabbi. Now he was once at a wedding. He was invited to a wedding, obviously a famous wedding, and there was sitting, when he walked in, the chief, I wrote it down, the chief psychologist of the Israeli Air Force. Now the Israeli Air Force, and I'm sure every Air Force, but they need to make sure that their pilots, no pirates in the Israeli Air Force. The pilots are focused, because, you know, I'm not going to tell you the last time I flew an F-16 jet, but I happen to know that you need to be very focused, and if you turn right or turn left, you need to know exactly what you're doing, and when you're doing it, otherwise it won't end up well. So you need to be focused, and you need the chief psychologist of an Israeli Air Force to help you out here. Anyway, he was at a wedding, and Rabbi Eliashiv, the rabbi, walked in, and he was mesmerized, and his mouth was open, and his eyes were wide, and I don't really know, but let's assume that his, I don't know, arms were flapping, if that happens, and he was mesmerized by this rabbi, and someone said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Who is this?" And they said, "This is Rabbi Eliashiv, he's the greatest rabbi in the world." So he said, "Wow." I said, "What?" He says, "I have never in my life seen a person with so much self-control." Now, Rabbi Eliashiv was, these people, they're not the belly people, angels. I mean, their whole focus is God and Torah and learning and everything. And every single move is calculated. I know a rabbi, and I saw him, and he's famous for, he didn't turn his head. If he wanted to look at, he would purposely not turn his head, he would never get distracted. If he wanted to look at something or someone, he would turn his body. Because he didn't want his head or his eyes to wander, he was so focused. So he's certainly somebody who guards his eyes and guards his everything, because he's so focused on what he has to be doing in life. And it's where talking about decisions, you know, maybe big decisions. Should I get up early? Should I meet these people? Should I do this or do that? Now, for me, you know, these are the decisions that I would say put judges on and enforcement officers. But for him, it was, you know, should I look to the left a little bit? Should I look to the right? That was his level. So actually, they asked him, Rabbi Eliashiv, at one point, how did you become Rabbi Eliashiv? You know, how did you get so great? So his history is well known. He was certainly a child protege. But he did reveal something quite remarkable. When he was young, he loved chazonas. What is chazonas? Imagine Pavarotti in Tzitzis and Estrymel, and the way he sings, and he'll sing your favorite synagogue songs, and it could be I'm not doing it the greatest justice, but that's more or less the way chazonas sounds, and for generations, that is how the services in synagogue were led. And it was beautiful, and it brought tears to one's eyes, and I'll let you decide if the tears were happy tears or sad tears. Essentially, that was what was happening. Rabbi Eliashiv loved chazonas. He loved it, apparently. He said he related this. And I'm sure on his level, it was bringing him closer to God and everything. Oh, everything, fine. He loved chazonas. Now, he was in Jerusalem, And there's a very famous Chazan, very famous singer who came to do a concert in Jerusalem. We're talking, by the way, must have been 90 years ago, about, and he got a ticket for this very famous once-in-a-lifetime concert from the Chazan, the famous singer, Yosler Rosenblatt. So Rabbi Yashav related as follows. He said, I was walking, I was very excited. He spent his whole day learning. He didn't even have anyone to learn with. He wasn't in a school. He learned. But he was honest. And he heard of Rabbi Yosler Rosenblatt was coming, and he got a ticket somehow, and he was on his way to listen. He was very excited. And he was walking along, I think in a place probably called Meir Sharim, and as he was walking, he was thinking to himself, he said, what does God gain from me going to listen to this concert? What does God gain from me doing this? I'm going to enjoy it, I'm going to have a great time. And I'm sure he told himself, because we all tell ourselves when we want to do something, it'll be good for him, it'll help his learning, it will put him in a better mood, and he'll catch up the time. I'm sure he did this. But he said ultimately he decided God doesn't gain anything from me going to hear this. But if I go back to the study house, if I go back to the base medrash, and I sit down and I sweat over a Gemara, over a Talmud, over something, that he's going to get something out of. And that is how I want to live my life. So apparently it was very difficult for him. He turned around, he went back to learn, and he sat, and he said from that moment on, I just felt the well springs of wisdom opening up within me. Now, I don't want to say he wasn't great as an 8-year-old child. He was phenomenal. But he said that from that time, he just felt a whole new level. Meaning he applied the judge, and he applied even the enforcement officer to get him to turn around. And from them, he got the most amount of blessing. He became the greatest of the greats. The wisdom flowed, and God is very involved in our lives, intimately. And therefore, that decision from him, he gave up his greatest thing for God. So God gave him the greatest thing, the gift of Torah, and he became the most venerable, I think that's the word, rabbi and disseminator of Torah in the world. He was indescribably great. So that is, I think, the introduction to what I'm going to say. And essentially, again, we've learnt the importance of every word of Torah and what we can learn from it. And certainly if we can take, I guess, the message that is, don't live life without thought. Think, the big things and the small things. The big things might be friends and family and workplace and, environment, certainly, and the way we spend our time, but also the small things. Everyone knows their own small things. Everyone knows their own big things as well. Everyone knows themselves. If you don't know yourself, do this, take 5 minutes, sit in the forest, I don't know, scream, cry. Whatever you need to do by yourself to learn yourself. Turn the phones off, stop social media, whatever it is, but know yourself. Once you get to know yourself, your strengths and weaknesses, you know where you can improve. And hopefully, once you start doing that, you'll know how you can improve as well. Okay, that was number 1. Number 2, we're going to go, for the benefit of tomorrow's live session, which is not really live, it's really from today, we're going to go to 18:13, also Deuteronomy, Devarim 18:13. I think that is. I didn't write the full verse, but I think it's 18:13. And I also didn't write the translation, but from memory, not really, I've written it down briefly. It says, be simple before Hashem, be simple before God. Now, how do I put this? Being simple is not necessarily the greatest character trait that one can imagine. Being wise is wonderful, challenging is great. The whole Torah, the whole library of Jewish knowledge is based on, like we just did with this verse. We took a verse and we questioned it. Why is it written this? And we had to come out with an answer. And if we didn't come out with the answer, we'd come out with a different one. And we challenge it and argue it with it. It's amazing actually to see that. I was once learning in the famous Yeshiva's Mir in Jerusalem. Yeshiva's Mir has got about, I don't know how many now, but I think it's about 7,000 people learning. And I've taken a few people there. Now, we say we're going to a study hall. So, if you know a study hall, you go to a library, wherever you are, and you say, this is a study hall. So you walk in, and, you walk in, and as you're making the footsteps, you go, shh, I'm trying to learn. you're trying to limit, and you hear a pin drop, and someone's freaking out because they can't concentrate. That is how the study house works in the universities and the wider world. In the Mir Yerushalayim, the study house, it's as follows. There's approximately 7,000 people screaming at each other, you're wrong, no, you're wrong, but in a more sophisticated way, like you're wrong because of this, and no, you're wrong because of this, and I'm right because of this, but in a more detailed way. Essentially, they're screaming because they're passionate, because firstly, learning is something to get passionate about, and the truth is something to get passionate about, and someone who's learning and falling asleep with their feet up is not really learning. You need to get passionate. You need to, just like you need to take all your decisions seriously. Learning, you need to push yourself. You need to push. Why does it say this? Push yourself. So anyway, so someone comes. I took somebody and they were expecting, quiet. And they walked up the steps really quietly, and they opened the doors and they had to go like that, screaming. In what we do when we study worldwide, usually we study in partners, because if you study by yourself, you come up with your own understanding, and who's there to challenge you? But when you study with a partner and he's there to say that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life, you think twice before saying something like that again. And then you argue your point. You say, no, yours was ridiculous. What do you mean mine was ridiculous? I've got this proof. No, I've got this proof. Yeah, I guess it's a lot more respectful than that. But, for the sake of entertainment, it can be like that actually sometimes, depending on who you're learning with. But that's the difference between a library, a study hall, and the base medrash. Where was I? I was being simple before Hashem. No, I wasn't. Well, okay, whatever. We were on the verse of to be simple before Hashem. So according to what I've just said, in the vision of the study hall, why are they screaming? They're screaming to get to the truth. If one person says, and this happens day in, day out in the study hall, one person says, we'll do the verse up, you should set up judges and enforcement officers for yourself in all your gates. This one says, yeah, it's fine. And the study partner says, what are you talking about? Is this for yourself? Why doesn't it need to say it for yourself? Or it says all. Why doesn't it need to say all? And you get into a whole argument because these things matter. These things matter. And even if you're not going to come up with a solution, to come up with the question, why did God do this? This is important. All of that was coming to say, what is this pasuk? What is this verse talking about? Be simple before God. What? Be simple. We've got to be smart. We've got to be clever. We've got to be argumentative. We've got to find the truth. Being simple just means, yeah, it's fine. What's going on? Why is the Torah telling us to be simple? So the first thing is very important and a very amazing thing. There's a rabbi called Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, very famous. He's very famous. Look him up. And he came up with, Wikipedia will tell you all. He said as follows. He said, there's every single character trait can be used to serve Hashem, can be used to serve God. Obviously, you can use anger to I don't know, let's say, someone comes to attack you and you're angry, you can save people's lives. Kindness, obviously, every single trait. That's what he said. Somebody challenged him and said, Rabbi, what about the trait of God denial? There's a trait called the God denial. In Hebrew it's called apikorsis. How can one use that trait to serve Hashem? Does it make sense? And the rabbi was clever, and he said, let me tell you, you can use that trait. Because if you have someone knocking at your door and saying, please can I have some money? I can't eat, can't feed my family. You must not say, God will provide. I know God will provide. You'll be fine. Have a good night. Bye-bye. That is not allowed. At that point, you've got to implement the character trait of, there's no such thing as God, God forbid, for the purpose. There's no such thing as God. I've got to help him. It's my responsibility. No one else will help him. He will starve without me. And therefore, you've got to put your hand in your pocket and give him money. As if God doesn't exist. Obviously, God exists. It's happened. It's true. Don't worry. But for that purpose, for the point of building up one's character, one's got to implement even that character trait. So, accordingly, we can use that principle to answer as follows. There must be, it's written in the Torah to do this, so definitely must be, there must be an importance of becoming simple before God. What does that mean? So perhaps it could, you could answer in so many different ways, but perhaps just following the example of what I was saying before about the importance of Torah and getting to the truth of it and screaming and shouting at the person you're learning with and saying, I'm right because of this. When we learn Torah, it's actually quite empowering because we're getting like these hidden or not so hidden messages from God, and we're feeling a truthfulness that he's connecting with us. And if he's connecting with us, then God is speaking to me. First thing is, wow, I'm important and I'm powerful and he loves me and I can do something. And that's quite empowering. It's quite, and then when you get an answer and you get, wow, he means this, and you live it, wow, it's amazing. Firstly, it is amazing, 100%. At the same time, it could be a bit challenging in the way that you start thinking very big of yourself. God is communicating with me. I'm a prophet. Maybe not quite that much, but to an extent, we could certainly get an element of haughtiness, which could be a bit difficult for us. So perhaps in that sense, we could be a bit more simple. That's maybe one understanding. Now the truth is, I just want to pause. I'm going to say maybe one or two more, but essentially everybody here could say their own understanding. My point is not to say this is exactly what God means. You know, if it's written in the Talmud, and if great rabbis have said it, then it's true, and you know, maybe we can add, but that's fine. But to an extent, I fully believe that the Torah is speaking to every single one of us. And therefore, I've maybe opened up the question, why does it say simple? And every single person themselves can think, well, yeah, I've got an answer for that. And if you've got an answer for that, that's amazing. And if it's true, to an extent, you know, we're never going to know what's true. But if it works, I'm saying something very difficult now. I don't want to get in trouble, because we can't just come out with silly things. I've got to be very careful, especially on live YouTube. But I want to say this. If the principle is true, because we know it from somewhere else in Torah, and you can apply that principle here, then it is true. It might not be the exact right intention, as it were, of God, but it's true. And if it's true, you can go with it. I think I've covered myself. I think I've made the legal requirement to cover myself there. I hope. So, what was I saying? I was saying that, okay, that when it comes to being simple before God, that's one understanding. You don't have to be haughty, a bit more simple. Perhaps another answer is as follows, that there are times when we're not going to know the answer. In fact, we're never really going to know the answer. Many times we can guess, we can say, it happened for this reason. Here's one. Somebody, I heard this story. Somebody was in hospital because they broke their leg. And what happened? Obviously, they found their wife. They found their wife. Not that. They found their wife. The wife wasn't like hanging around hospital and said, oh, there you are. No, they found a wife in hospital. The wife was a nurse. The woman was a nurse, and he married her. And he said, now I know why I broke my leg. And this was God's plan all along. And he does all good, which is true. He does all good. But this is why it happened. So let me ask you a question, Mr. Patient with the broken leg. Why did God break your leg? This nurse doesn't hang around, outside the hospital sometimes. He could have just been walking, visiting a friend, visiting someone else who broke his leg. Why did he break your leg? So that you don't have an answer for. No one really has an answer. Obviously, I even spoke about it last time. Click here. I don't have social media, but they do that on YouTube. Click here for the previous previous class. If you can arrange that, I'd be very happy. It'll make me very professional, which I'm not. Anyway, so why did God break his leg? He didn't need to. So everybody, like I said in the last class, should concentrate on why things happen to them. They're never going to know the truth, but they certainly can listen to the messages that God sends them. So he should be able to work out why God did it. And if he's going to work it out, that's great, he'll improve his life. If he's not going to work it out, then shame, and I'm sure he'll get other messages. But essentially what I'm saying is as follows, that we're never really going to know what is going on with our lives. Things happen to us all the time. Now, even if we know what we have to do with it and we try and improve ourselves, not necessarily we're going to know. And there are times when, God forbid, terrible things happen and we don't know why it happened. And we can't even question, because ultimately we believe in God and God's all good and God did it and therefore it is good. But I don't know why. I don't know what I can learn, and I don't know why I should be happy about this. I'm supposed to be happy if God does something that's good for me. Even if it's painful, I'm still supposed to be happy. It's a huge level that is almost superhuman, if not superhuman. But essentially that's what we're supposed to do. So perhaps this is what the verse means. That there are times, even when we've studied, and even when we're on a very high level, there are times when we don't know why God did something. And those times we could apply ourselves to say, I'm a questioner, and I'm a seeker for truth, and I want to understand this and that, and I'm even going to go into my old previous sins and work out, could be this, could be that. Now, to an extent, we all have to do that, because that's part of, like we said previously, setting up judges. We need to say, am I acting appropriately? Maybe I did something wrong, God's sending me a message. But there's times when we've got to stop We've done our appropriate, can't think of an English word, in Hebrew it's hishtadlut. We've done all we can. We've made every effort to find it, and we still don't know. At that point, we've got to be simple. We don't question God. There are things we just don't know. If we understood God, we would be Him. So we don't understand God. We're not God. There are times when we've got to always try to work out, what did He want from me? What does He want from me? And if something happens to me in this world, it's because He wants something from me. But to find out the reason, and therefore, there are times when we have to say, I have to be simple before God. And that means no questioning. So on the one hand, we've got to question why did He do it in terms of how can I improve? But at the same time, we'll never be able to say, why did it really happen? Who knows? Who knows why? Who knows what our souls, who wanted from us? I'll tell you something amazing. Not written down. This is fresh material. This is life-changing. Everything I've said is life-changing, I hope, for me at least. And he says as follows. He says, I think it's the Minchas Cohen. He was 1,000 years ago. He says as follows, every single soul chose exactly what it is going to be in this world. It chose the challenges, and it says as follows. It said it chose every soul. As in, let's imagine this. We're not gamblers. And, some people are gamblers. When you've got $100 and you think you should take a risk or not take a risk. Should I invest it wisely or carefully, conservatively, or should I just should I break it up? And so he says as follows: every soul gets a choice. Does it want to start off rich or poor? Does it want to start off closer to God or further from God? Why would anyone want to choose to be further from God? Well, I'll tell you, because if a soul is born further from God and then chooses to get closer to God, then their reward is going to be greater. If they're already born close to God, okay, great, they stayed there, but essentially their nature was already to do that, so the reward isn't so great. On the other hand, if they're close to God and they leave God's presence, that's really bad. Whereas somebody who is already far from God, as it were, and they leave God's presence, they're already not there, and they don't come back, or they get worse, so they're hardly to blame, because essentially they were put there anyway. So every soul, I can imagine every soul around the gambling table thinking, I'm going to do the first 13 years close to God, and then 13, I think I'll take a few years off, and then I'll become wealthy, and then I'm hoping that after wealthy, when I become poor, I've already ingrained within myself the ability to appreciate the value of money, and whatever, every single decision the soul apparently decided. And therefore, firstly, that's remarkable. We've just spent 5 minutes in the forest thinking about that, working out where we're holding with that. It's remarkable. But certainly, if anything is very empowering, that means that we chose our own position. If God forbid we're going through terrible times, that means you decided that this was best for you and you could get out of it. That's remarkable. And if we're going through good times as well, obviously it's all in the plan. But the ultimate goal is to get close to God, and it's not to be rich, not to be poor. Some people, the challenges with being wealthy is worse than the challenges of being poor. And so everyone's got to assess themselves. Okay, where were we? Being simple for God. I think we covered that. And therefore, being simple for God is saying, listen, this challenge that God's given me, I don't understand why it happened to me. I've worked on myself to understand what I can do now. How can I apply myself in future to be better? Why did it happen? I have to be simple. Okay, that was lesson number 2. Let's move on. William, you're still awake?
I am. It takes a second for my microphone to turn on when I'm 50
Sorry,
No, you're good.
I feel bad to bring you in. I just, I'm by myself. I'm by myself over here.
Hey, if you don't check on me from time to time, I might fall asleep just because it's. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't fall
If we
asleep.
hear you snoring, I'll speak louder.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. There's a few more pieces, and we're doing okay for time.
You're doing fine. Yes.
Okay, here's another one. With your permission, sorry to disturb your slumber, which you weren't slumbering. Okay, we'll take another verse. This is 21. 20:1. When you go out to battle, I'll say in Hebrew because it's going to be relevant. When you go out to battle. So this is another example of the Torah doing something weird. What do I mean? Firstly, we have to say this. There are no mistakes in Torah. God does not make mistakes. It does not make mistakes. The Torah has no mistakes. If it's written in a certain way, even if it's wrong, it's right. I don't know if you put quotes on the right, but if it's wrong, it's right. And therefore, the following verse says as following: when you go out to the battle, when you go out to war. Now, what's the problem? The problem is the word says teitzei. When you, teitzei is singular. When you go out to war. Now, this is a command. This is an instruction to the Jewish people. The Jewish people are many. In the war, there was many. And 600,000 in certain circumstances. And therefore, you being singular is wrong. What does that mean? So again, let's apply what we said right at the beginning. There's no such thing as an extraneous word in Torah. God is communicating to us through the verses. And therefore, when he says, when you go out to war, and it's a singular you, meaning not you, all of you, it's you, it's telling us a message. So again, let's take a pause. The message, you could I've raised the question, what's the answer? So everyone can think of their own. Everyone can think of their own and can come up with some amazing material. And I encourage it, absolutely. So let me tell you what the Al-Sheikh HaKadosh said. Al-Sheikh, good name. He said as follows. Okay, we're learning the following message. We're learning the message that when you go out to battle, it's written in singular, because essentially it's an instruction how to go out to battle. If you go out disparate, I mean separate in many ways, if you go out in a disparate, all individual, trying to get glory, I'm going to try and go here, and he's going to try and go there, and I'm going to try and win, and that's not going to work. When one goes to a battle, you need to go, plural, you need to go all as one, with the same vision, with the same goal, with the same excitement, with a unity. Now, that's essentially what he says, and he's speaking about battles, but we could also apply that to our lives. When we go out to any challenge in life, when we have friends, we have family, if we're going on our own way, we're doing our own thing, let's say we're married and we've got our own goals for life. So if we are just with a partner and we're doing our own thing, we're not going to be so successful, we're not going to win the war. The way to go out to war, the way to go out to challenge, the way to go out to life is to be with good people and to have a unity with them and use your strengths and their weaknesses and your strengths together. And with that, you'll be strong and you'll be successful in war. So that's what he says. He says you go as one. Actually, I don't want to get into hot water, but if you look at what's going on with Russia and Ukraine, and not saying anything political, right or wrong, but the whole plan was to create a disunity in Ukraine and with NATO, and the defense, as it were, is to keep the unity, and the game plan, as it were, was to keep the unity of NATO, and that was the strength of NATO. And essentially this is the message of the Al-Sheikh, to be successful in any battle. And I'll express it in any challenge and any somebody goes out to achieve something and they want to achieve something with other people, there needs to be unity. In fact, they asked Rav Simcha Pesishcha, that's his name, and they asked him who's going to win the war between Russia and Napoleon, long time ago. And he said, definitely Russia. Why? Because if you look at Russia, they're united. Napoleon is not, and that is, we see from this passage, that's a key to success, and he was indeed true. And apparently, I looked it up briefly, and apparently, secular studies say that the biggest reason why Napoleon lost is because there was disunity among men. Actually, this Rav Simcha Pesishcha, he demonstrated this in the following parable. He said, I'm convinced that Russia is going to war, and I'll tell you why, and I'll bring you a story. So there was I'm slightly embellishing the story, look, a little bit. He said as follows: there was a man, a wealthy man. That was what he said. I'm going to embellish it. Super wealthy man, really wealthy. And he loved horses. This man, let's call him Bill, because Bill is a popular 17th century Polish name. And Bill, that was the embellishment, for those who didn't notice, Bill loved horses. He would do anything for a good horse, and he would drop any business deal to run to get a good horse. And one day, he heard of a market where they were selling exotic horses for great prices. So he dropped everything and he went on he harnessed. I think he harnessed horses. He harnessed his two best horses and put it on a carriage, and he zoomed off to this faraway place, and he was super excited. And as he was going there, it was a long journey, and then in the middle of the day or night, let's keep it today, and there was a storm and dark rain clouds. Now you see where I kept it today, because then you understand the imagery. It was day, and the dark rain clouds came, and followed by rain, obviously, because what good are rain clouds without rain? And then there was mud on the ground, and he was struggling, and he was with his best horses, and at some point there was lightning, and there was a crash of thunder, and one horse went that way, and the other horse went that way, and the carriage went that way, and there was mud, and he was stuck, and he couldn't get out. And then all of a sudden, a puny little man with puny little horses, trotted past. They were so puny, they didn't have names. They were too puny to have names. And the man was beside himself, and he couldn't understand how could these two horses navigate this section so well, and his greatest steeds, they didn't have a chance. And what was going on? So he said, "Excuse me, sir," puny sir. He was probably not very happy at that point. And the puny man said, "Yes, how can I help you?" He said, "Tell me, I don't understand. I've got the best horses here, and your mates over there, I don't mean to be rude, but they're puny. They don't even have names. So how could they navigate so well?" So this man, although he was puny, he was very wise, and he said as far as, "Tell me, where are your horses from?" So he said, "You see, this horse is from Egypt, and he's the best horse in the whole of Egypt, and I bought him. And this horse is from Liverpool, England, Liverpool. You thought Liverpool was famous for beetles. It's also famous now for horses. So this one's from Liverpool, and this one's from Egypt, and they're the best Liverpudlian and Egyptian horses there are." And the man said, "Exactly. They are working as an Egyptian horse and a Liverpudlian horse." I can make so many jokes right now. I'm not going to. I get so much trouble. No, I can't. So this is a Liverpudlian horse. And although he knows how to run, for obvious reasons, for those who know, he runs in this direction. And the Egyptian doesn't know how to walk with the Liverpudlian, because he's got his own interests. He's going after, his own, he cares about himself. "My horses," says the puny man, "were brothers. They grew up together. They fed from the same thing that horses feed from. And, when one gets a whip, the other one doesn't want his brother to get whipped, and they work together. When they work together, you can navigate any path. You can avoid the mud. You can go stronger together. Even if you've got the two strongest horses and they're super strong, if you're not together, you'll fail because everyone's got their own interests." So that's a lesson for us in life, certainly in marriage, but anything we apply ourselves to in workplace, anything that we apply ourselves to in trying to achieve something. If we're doing it with a group, we need unity, we need good friends. Part of that is asking ourselves, are these people good for us? Are we good for them? Are we growing together? Are we gaining together? Are we becoming better people together? And if the answer is yes, and we're working together, then great. Even if we're not the strongest, we'll navigate the challenges successfully. Whereas if you've got the strongest and the best, but they're not working together, it's going to fail. They're going to hit the challenges are going to be too hard, and this one's going to go that way, that one's going to go that way. It's not going to work. So that was the message, and that was why Napoleon failed in his quest of conquering the world. And apparently that was the Russia's success way back when. Okay, so that was another one. Let's see if we've got time for. Goodness me, we're hitting the hour clock, right? I'm going to get cut off then.
No. If you need some more time, go ahead.
Amazing, because last time I was like, I don't know, about an hour 15, because you gave me extra permission.
Sure, go right ahead.
So I wouldn't want the cyber feng shui to be off. So I'm grateful. Okay, let's stick therefore with the Gosh, wow, so much to say. Okay, let's stick with the war for a second. When we said go out to war, and we said our message is you should go out as a unity. So there's a famous story. The Maskilim. Maskilim are the so-called enlightened people who came and said everyone's got to modernize. And there's a famous play that they put on. A bit of background, which was who could go out to war? Who was allowed to go out to war? So I don't have exactly where they are in the verses, but there's a whole section of who can go out to war. Anyone who was engaged and had not yet married had to couldn't go to war. Anyone who planted a vineyard and not yet, whatever the word is to take the first, whatever, fine, they had to go back. Whoever built a house and not lived in it, they had to go back. And you know what? Anyone who's afraid of sin, who had done a sin, and the Talmud, the Mishnah even says, even the smallest of sins, they also had to go back. So there's a famous play, and it wasn't a nice play at all. It was actually making fun of this. And what they did was they had the stage, and they had a whole group of people, and they had the sergeants, the Jewish sergeants, saying, who's got this, and who's done this, and who's afraid of sin, and who's done this thing wrong. And at the end of the day, you're left with you had 100 people on the stage, and at the end of the day, you had 3 old people, 90-year-old men. With one's holding their walking stick and the other one's swinging around their tefillin. They weren't really doing that, but maybe they were in that play, but one shouldn't do that. And they would say, we're going out to war. You've got 3 old men, and they were supposed to fight the whole mighty army. And that was the big joke, and all the audience were having a giggle, and this is ridiculous. This is written in the Torah, and what's going on here? That's who fought the wars. And the play ended. And they asked the rabbi who was there, I don't know how he was there, but he was there, and they said to him, what did you think of that? So he said, the truth is, I understand why they laughed, but they didn't finish the play. The play was, we won the war. Because a war is not fought with might. A war, certainly a war for God, a war for religious reasons, is fought through Torah and mitzvahs. And it's not, no one's strong enough. At the end of the day, God runs the world, and that's, put that on the table. God runs the world, and if there's a war, it's because there's God wants something to happen, and depending on the war and the situation, He wants certain people to act in a certain way. But certainly, the biggest and the greatest weapon someone can have is Torah and mitzvahs. If they're keeping the Torah and they're doing they're connecting to God in a way that says, "I'm your child. I'm doing what you expect from me in whatever capacity I'm required to do, or whatever capacity I'm able to do." Then God says, okay, you're doing everything you can, so I'm going to protect you, I'm going to save you. I don't want to get any political or too political, but I will. I'm going to solve a huge political problem in Israel right now. Not just right now. I'm going to do it as follows. There's a big argument. Maybe I shouldn't be airing dirty laundry, but there's a big argument in Israel. Which is between those who, let's say, learn Torah all day, and they're learning and they're learning, and those who are joining the army. So there's when someone doesn't need to go, the exemptions, an exemption from the army for those who learn. So one side is very unhappy with that. How can you sit down and learn archaic books and when we're fighting? And the answer to that is as follows, and it's a very beautiful answer, but unfortunately it's not being said in the right way, it's not being heard in the right way. So perhaps in this forum I will solve all of Israel's problems, which is as follows. It's true, if you don't value Torah, if you don't value and understand that Torah is a protection, it's a magen, it's a shield, so obviously you're going to think that, and I don't blame you for thinking that if that's how you view Torah. But somebody who's learning and genuinely understands the power, the potency of learning Torah and what it does, not just for knowledge. Knowledge is wonderful, knowledge is a greater connection to God, but it's a real thing. When someone learns Torah in an appropriate way, they are creating many angels of protection, many angels for doing different things. So those who are sitting and learning Torah are saying, we agree to you, we're also fighting a battle, we're also protecting, you know what, we're doing even more. We're learning Torah to protect you and to help fight the battles. So essentially, if anyone hears on the news that there's an argument going on, the answer to the argument is that everyone's got the same goal. We're talking about unity. Everyone's got the same goal. We're looking to protect each other. We're looking to do the best thing. They think it's in that way, and we know it's in this way. And okay, the bridge would be to get everybody to appreciate everyone's side and come together. I hope it happens very soon. Now, I don't want to be rude and take more time, and I don't know if the budget covers me speaking about something not on the Parsha, William. I don't know if the budget covers it, but
I think the budget might allow it. I'm not sure if there is a budget, but
what? You could have told me something at the beginning there. Okay, so I have lots to say in the Parsha, but I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about the actual time that we are in now. The month is called Elul. Elul is as follows. I'll try and be brief. Elul is the month before Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the day that the whole world was created and everyone is judged. Elul is the month before that. Essentially, it's the last month of the year, if you think about it. If the world was created, the world's birthday is in a month called Tishrei, and that's Rosh Hashanah. Then the month before that is called Elul, and that's where we're in now. Now, there's the most phenomenal idea of Torah, which is as follows. The first time that something happened in the world, or in the Torah, I should say, is its reality. That's quite vague, but I'll say it as follows. Let's say it in a different way. We have in the Torah the following thing that happened with Lot and Abraham and Lot. That was their story, and Lot was in a place called Sodom, and the angels came to visit him. And it says that he was eating matzot. He was eating matzahs. Now, to eat matzahs, why do we eat matzahs? We eat matzahs to celebrate Pesach, Passover. We came out of Egypt with unleavened bread on our backs, let's say, and therefore it was cooked as we were going out of Egypt. And to celebrate the fact that we left Egypt in such a hurry that God brought us out, we eat matzah. Now, this happened 400 years after Lot was eating matzahs. So why was Lot eating matzahs? What did he know? There was nothing to celebrate at that point. The answer, the commentators say, the answer is as follows. Inbuilt in the world is a certain time frame, meaning the world at that time where he was eating matzahs happened to be in the month of Nisan. This time was a time of freedom. To celebrate freedom, we eat matzahs. I hope I'm not losing anyone here. So every month has got its special time. Elul is the month before the world was created. Now, what happened before the world was created? God's will was there to create the world. Okay? Have I lost anyone? It's late. Let's just say very, very briefly. God created the world in Tishrei, the first of Tishrei. That's the month. The month before that is where we are now. What happened? The first Elul, that was the time before God created the world. The answer is there was no world, but there was God's will to create the world. Okay, with that introduction, I'll say as follows. We are in a time right now, a month right now, of potential, of huge potential, because the world, as it were, has not yet been created. Every year the world is created anew. Essentially, the world doesn't pass by linearly, like that. It's spirally. That's probably not a word. Okay, so you've got different time zones. Let's say you've got the creation of the world. So you've got a spiral going through time, and now we're thousands of years later, but it's still connected the same way and got the same potential as the original thing that happened. So for instance, like we said the example, if Pesach, Passover, happened in the month of Nisan, so Nisan was there, and we spiral around, Lot was eating matzahs there because he happened to be above Nisan. And 400 years later was the exodus of Egypt because it also happened to be above Nisan. Okay, so what happened in Elul? Elul, the spiritual energy of Elul, is God's will to give us life. Because Tishrei is when he gave us life. So before then is his will to give us life. Take a breath. Okay, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say as follows. We're in a very, very, very special month. In the mazel, the zodiac, as it were, is the Virgin, and the Virgin has got all the potential in front of her. That's the month that we find ourselves in. We have a potential right now to connect to God's will to give us life. We've got a very big day coming up in a few weeks called Rosh Hashanah. It's a day of judgment. Now, on the one hand, it's a little bit scary, a lot scary, but the truth is it's a day of such potential that it's so much more exciting than it is scary. Because if we can connect with this month to God's will to give us life, then we can go in the next month, specifically after Rosh Hashanah, with this new life. Now, I'm saying a lot of things esoterically. Let me try and pin it down a little bit. And that's as follows. I think we need to just ask very briefly, what is life? Life is not existence. Life is not the pulse. Gosh, still have a pulse. Life is not existence. Life is growth. Something that's alive is growing. Something that is dead is decaying. So we can take that and say life is growth. It doesn't mean existence. When we beg for life from God in the next month, we are saying we want life, we want growth, we want to come closer to you, we want to be better people. That is what we want. So to exist is not worth too much, unfortunately. Too many things exist and they're wasting away or whatever. We want life, we want growth. That is next month. The day to get growth, the day to get life is Rosh Hashanah, which is coming up. We are a few weeks before that. Now we need to tap into the spiritual essence of the day and say, okay, God, this is a time before you give us life. This is a time when you wanted to give us life back before creation. I'm going to tap into that day and join you in your quest to give us life. It's quite complicated. I'm trying to say something in maybe one sentence. This is a time to ask ourselves, why are we living? What are we living for? We're living to exist, we're living to eat, we're living for vacation, or we're living to grow spiritually. We're living to become a better person, a bigger person, a better friend, a better father, mother, to connect to ourselves, to connect to others, to connect to God, to perform good deeds. We need to, what I said right at the beginning, we need to start learning about ourselves, understanding ourselves, and questioning why are we here. If we come to the realization that we're here to more than survive, to more than exist, and this is the day that we say, okay, I've decided I want life, I want to grow. How do I do that? And these are the days where we ask ourselves, can we get close to you? What can we do to get close to you? To get to a point where you want to give us life and I want life, and let's do this as it were together to use the power of this day and the day of the judgment, where God decides what everybody will get. And we're going to stand up on that day and say, I want existence, give me another life, give me another year of life. That's a shame, it's a wasted opportunity. But if we stand before God on Judgment Day and say, God, I want growth, I want to be so much better, I want the opportunities to be bigger, then we're just absolutely taking the potential of the day. And perhaps, I guess I'll finish with if I'm certainly not worthy of giving a blessing, but if with your permission, I'll give everybody a blessing here that they're able to get to know themselves better.
Yes, sir.
And everyone can always know themselves better and understand their strengths and weaknesses and get a vision and a goal and a desire for growth and a desire to become big and a desire for more of goodness, more of everything, more of the things that you really want. We said at the beginning, to become a judge and to decide what's right for you. More, not more judgment, but more appreciation of what could make me better. And then we spoke about the officers, and we want more of the ability to go in the right direction. We want to pray to God to stay away from bad things, to go towards good things, to get good inclination for better things, to build our strength, to be united with those around us in the right path, to stay away from badness. Please God, we all only have blessings and only good things, and we only get a real life, a true life, not a life of existence, but a life of growth and determination and greatness.
Awesome. Rabbi, thank you so much. It's been a wonderfully informative show as usual. Thank you for your time, and all of you guys, please definitely go to. Let me pull his information back up briefly for just a moment. There's some wonderful books there. I just need to put that out there for you guys because we bought a couple of the books. I think we have 3. You have more than.
Oh,
you have.
I think of the 4.
You have 4. Oh, right. Oh, yeah. There you go.
But it's this one. It's right now. It's what we just spoke about.
Oh, very good.
Like
Okay, awesome.
If you like what I just spoke about, you'll love this book.
Excellent.
If you didn't, you should buy it anyway.
Very good. I love it. Okay, Rabbi, thank you so much. You have a wonderful evening.
Great.
And
Thank
you
you
all for
so
tuning in.
much.
And tune in. Hopefully this will be the edited version will go live, so you guys can chat again tomorrow by 7 p.m. I'm shooting for 5 p.m., but we'll see how well the edits go. It all depends on how fast I can get the edits done. So, Rabbi, thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you same time, same place, Hashem willing, on the other side. Shalom, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה